So I wanted to try like a purple pastel. So I was doing this whitewashed purple. Didn't turn out as I thought, but I wanted to go ahead and show you how this one came around. I bought this Mohawk wiping wood stain, this white wood stain. And I put on a real thick coat here. This was a new construction body that I had done another video in, sanded down the top. And then I get my Angelus purple dye and I try and drop this over the whitewash, and it just does not take. So that wiping stain really seals up the body pretty good, and it sealed up the pores. So I had to go back and stain it, and you can see in the pics here it's just completely sealed. You see no figure from that white. I thought if I put that white base on I could still put a color underneath it and it would turn out nicely, but you can see it's just sort of a big mess here. So took some 220, 320 and 400 and went over the body and just started to sand this off. It was interesting as I started to sand it, you get that pastel color slightly, so it becomes sort of a purple whitewash. Once I sanded it back, you've got the purple on the outer and sort of a little bit of a stain in the middle. But of course I couldn't just leave it like that. So here it actually looks decent. Just needed to go back and clean up the stain a little bit. And so I've got the original rag and I've got the purple, and I just start feathering the edge. And as I feather that edge, I get a really hard line here. And that's just it's not what I wanted. So I learned in using these Angelus dyes, it's better to not thin the colors. So I get some denatured alcohol here and begin to try and spread this out. And you'll see what happens here is I take that color and try and just sort of spread this out and get this to fade across. And what happens is you start to get some color blotching. So in the center, you start to get these spots where the color sort of sits. I didn't understand why this was happening. I read online of what to use to thin it, and with wood it just doesn't turn out. So I get some steel wool and try to pull some of that out, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I know I've got to go back and hit this up with a different alcohol. So I went to Walgreens, purchased another type of alcohol, and again it didn't work. So you can do ether, denatured, or isopropyl. I think those are your three options. I know I butchered all that. But even using this alcohol and trying to get it to thin out and sort of fade, it didn't work at all. That's one of the things I learned by using the trans tint is those waters, you really can get the water-based colors and you can push them around. So again, I took this over to the sanding station with some 400 grit and sanded out those blotches so you get that blotchy mess. And I got some purple trans tint here, and now this is a water-based tint. So moving away from the alcohol because it's leaving some splotches, we'll go ahead and use a couple drops of purple in water and begin to rub this in then. So I've got a nice hard line on the outside. I'm going to take this purple now, the purple based water, and just sort of mix it in. So I'll use this coloring and pull it through, mix it around. And I'll go back with the other purple Angelus dye and try to get those colors to pull through. And here I just sort of switch the rags back and forth between the water and the Angelus, trying to get the colors to pull through. And again, a back and forth process to get the coloring and the feathering right. So that actually looks okay. And I'm just taking some steel wool to just clean this up a little bit. As it's wet, I could feel it just picking up a little bit. And then I decided to get really fancy and use these purple flakes, so these Pearl X pigments, and drop this in and really just sort of get a little bit of a flare going on the outside with this purple pigment and see what I could get going on the body here. So we'll get the purple pigments to really soak in. If I had done this in the beginning, I would have gotten that pigment to sit into the pores a lot better. Maple is a closed pore wood, but you can sometimes lift the grain with the water and get the flakes to sit in real well. But you can kind of see in the pictures here, even as it's wet, the flakes are starting to sit on the outside. I'm really getting some interesting coloring here. And I wanted those flakes to build up on the outside and sort of get just another effect on the guitar body. So just sort of clean this up with the rag, make sure there's not too much water soaking in. Really trying to get that pearl pigment to just sort of sit. And you can see in the pics here, the outside has a really cool effect. I don't have a sanding sealer on here or anything yet, but just a different way with a purple finish to finish the guitar body. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next vid.